Example 5 is another midpoint problem, but it's a slightly different setup for a couple of reasons. First, they never tell us specifically that it's a midpoint here. We have to be able to determine it's a midpoint from my diagram, specifically from the fact that these tick marks are showing that n is the midpoint. So that's the first step. Step 2 that's different is I haven't given you segment MN and segment NP. Instead, I gave you segment MN and the entire thing. The setup here is going to be different, but the idea is the same. Because I know that this segment MN and segment NP are congruent, I know that this segment is also 3x plus 1, since this one is. Now I can make it a segment addition problem because I have a part, and a whole. More specifically, I can say that 3x plus 1, that's segment MN, plus 3x plus 1, that's segment NP, equals the length of the entire segment MP, or 9x minus 4. Now I can use algebra to solve for x. 3x and 3x is 6x, 1 plus 1 is 2, equals 9x minus 4. Subtract the 6x from both sides and I get 3x. Add this 4 to both sides, I get it equals 6. When I divide both sides by 3, we find that x is equal to 2. Now I can find segment NP and segment MP. Segment NP will be equal to 3 times 2 plus 1, or 6 plus 1, which is 7. And segment MP will be equal to 9 times 2 minus 4, or 18 minus 4, which is 14. Again, it makes sense. I know that this segment is 7, this segment is 7. The whole thing must be 14. In example 6, we're given information, but not a diagram. This is a situation where we would expect you to be able to draw the diagram. Go step by step. D is the midpoint of segment PJ. So I'm going to start by drawing a segment PJ with D as its midpoint. Now, it's trickier here because I'm going to have this next step. A is the midpoint of segment PD. So I'm going to put A here and mark that as the midpoint. Notice I didn't mark D as the midpoint yet, because it's a little bit trickier to do that when I have this point A here as well. So to mark D as the midpoint, I might do something like this, circle point A, and then just put a circle here. Now I'm showing that I have D as a midpoint. And they tell me that segment PJ, this entire thing, is 30. They want us to find the length of each segment now. Well, this becomes an exercise in understanding midpoint. I know the whole segment must be 30, and if D is a midpoint, it cuts that segment in half. Half of 30 is 15, so segment DJ has to be 15. And segment PD must also be 15, because I have cut that segment PJ in half. Then if I look at this on a smaller scale and I look just at segment PD, A is the midpoint. That means it cuts segment PD in half. So PA must be half of 15. That's 7.5. And segment AD must also be 7.5. Example 7 is going to be a similar idea, but now with algebra. So we are given that segment WT is congruent to segment HS. Well, that means that the length of segment WT equals the length of segment HS. I know that's true because I've been given that. So that tells me this. They want us to determine if this is true. I don't know if it is or not. In order to figure that out, we need to figure out all of these side lengths. But I know that WT is 4x plus 10, and it's equal to HS, which is 5x minus 3. So I'll erase some of those arrows to make it a little bit more clear. I know that's true because they told me that was true. I have to use what I've been told is true to solve for x. Okay, subtract 4x from both sides and I get an x on the right. Add 3 to both sides and I get 13. Now, I know that x is 13. I can find the length of segment WT. That's 4 times 13 plus 10. So when I take my calculator out and I use 4 times 13 plus 10, I find that it is equal to 62. I'm going to find the length of HS. That's 5 times 13 minus 3. So in my calculator I do 5 times 13, I subtract 3, I get 62 again. That makes sense. That just shows me that I did my work here correct. The big test is to find segment BD. 3 times 13 plus 23. Well, 3 times 13 plus 23 is 62. Since all three of these are equal, I now can say that segment WT is congruent to segment BD because they both measure 62 units. I cannot say it's true if I would have gotten anything other than 62 for the length of segment BD. Again, the key here is I used the given statement to solve for x. Plug x into all three segments to find segment lengths. Those first two should be congruent because that was my given statement that they are. It's comparing the third one to determine if it is also congruent. That is the last step in this type of problem. The last page in notes today will be a construction page, so please take your compass and your straight edge out now and then open up the video 3 notes.